世间所有的相遇，都是久别重逢。
清风明月如怀抱。
For the big enterprise, the challenge is not to build a AI agent, right? But two primary changes is coming. One is actually enterprise agentic AI. Going to be a lot of AI agents going to be built for large operations. For example, the Bank of New York, right? They have deployed ELISA, the platform, become digital employee, right? That's exactly the future, right? And the other is kind of coding using such agent, right? It doesn't have to be agent, it can be other like skills and how you orchestrate the fleet of AI agent, right? And also every big vendors, open sources, NVIDIA proposed nano claw, right? Versus the open claw, right? And Gravity for coding side, the core worker, the loop, skills, cloud code, Codex, agent core, AWS, XAI is coming, obviously, right? The autonomous driving is a big thing, right? And Google, right? I mentioned, not in a particular order, from JLM, the Minimax, Moonshot, Quinn, and DeepSeek, obviously, right? And there are a lot of open source on GitHub or Hugging Face, right? The things are practically, right? One is more the coding side, and the other is more like, in general, business-like employee, digital employee, the AI agent, right? It doesn't have to be an agent. It can be just, it is a full kind of ecosystem. You could call it a revolution. It's going to totally, but gradually, right, change the workforce, the dynamics of. I think some of the big firms started letting people go. Right, we mentioned it, 2028 AI crisis or something, right? And also coding is not really equal to engineering, software engineering, or platform engineering, system engineering. Take a lot of engineers, not replaceable, for example, architecture, right? Easily by the AI agent, right? Doesn't matter how powerful you are. Who is going to take the responsibility? Who is going to be accountable? It's still humans, right? But however, those are coming, okay? And the way the business operates is going to be changed, right? Going to be redefined. What is a programmer supposed to be, right? What a software engineer supposed to go, right? Obviously, if I may repeat how our business go, right? Macrobotics business mantra, if you will, is redefine the human, right? Mostly the workforce, right? And business ontology, obviously, right? The enterprise agentic AI is going to come, right? The workforce is going to be fundamentally changed. And then, lastly, you're going to look at the finance side. Well, on one side, it's doomsday, kind of a lot of people are going to lose their job, right? Because you don't need to pay AI agent, but you do need to pay for the infrastructure, the computing part, the chips, right? The models, and frameworks, and making the few Magnificent Seven, for example, richer, and obviously some of the investors richer, but that's minority, right? May not necessarily to be elite, but that kind of model of operation in terms of the wealth accumulation, distribution, it is elite kind of benefit the few kind of model, right? But we need to think how we're going to benefit the majority, right? The majority of the workforces, they have to think how to catch on, right? Safely land in the new economy. It's no landing, just evolving, right? You have to swimming, right? Keep running. Talking about that, the tax structure, right? The wealth distribution, the salary, etc., need to be measured. Not again, just if you manage 100 AI agent and you produce a lot of business value, should you be paid by just the salary? Say if you're employee, right, permanent. What if you're doing contracting, the fintech, for example, or regtech, or smaller AI partnership sort of contributors? Well, obviously the SaaS, that is going to be software as service is going to be hard to justify unless you change the charging model, right? Not by seat or license, but by how much you produce, what the value you contribute, right? Same thing of the employee or whatever the partnership, contractors, right? You should be paid by what you produce for the firm, for the big enterprises like banks, or hospitals, or government, whatever you do. And the tokens you spend, the other operational expenditures, and then you should take a percentage of those, right? It produced, added value, right? The salary will be restructured, let's say. The tax will be restructured. Okay? Those are the things we need to think. The other element is the payment, right? You're going to pay by the token, or pay by whatever you contribute. How do you measure that? How do you measure result? We talk about result, okay. Added value. How do you measure those added value? Productivity increase, how many customers you acquired, how many payment you processed, or the sales you have been facilitated, efficiency gain, or risk you mitigated, a report, how many reports you produced. So how do you measure that? So there are those KPIs, right? Quantification. Right? How do you, who is going to really give you that ledger, right? Okay. And X money, like Elon Musk jump into that, right? And also the Circle, USDC, right? The reason being, the agent, you have to give them not only the authority to do the work, but the transaction involves money, right? Maybe on a blockchain or something, right? It's more secure, right? Traceability there, not mutable, the distributed ledger, smart contracts, right? Those are coming into play. That's why some of the, I call it MicroPost, is one of my products, right? But again, you have to rethink about it. What is the ledger? I also have a macro ledger that's record the consumption of the tokens, right? The work you have been producing, right? And also the how much you contributed to the business, how they pay you, okay? Pay you obviously by this, I call it token as well, right? So essentially, by some end of the day or end of the month by hour, then you need to tally it up, right? The transaction has to be quick, right? There are a lot of talks, and there'll be more, really. Again, 3 pillars, right? The human, right? Redefine him, redefine the business model, right? How you make the kind of pay, how do you calculate the contribution in expenditure, right? And number three, the finance side, right? How do you really facilitate such payment online for the agent, right? The new workforce, if you will, right? You have to have a ledger somehow. Otherwise, how the regulation is going to be enforced, right? How the risks been mitigated, right? It has to be some sort of a accounting, I call it macro ledger, not just distributed ledger on the blockchain, but internally as well. So more importantly, internally, right? You have to have a clear accounting, right? That ledger, right? You have to balance it somehow, right? You have to have the ability to predict, to quantify the risks, right? So those are important. It is, the millennia kind of principles, how we operate. It's not because AI going to be no longer required. It will be required even more because the AI agent entered the realm, right? See, that is where we're going to pause our thoughts. There's going to be a lot of, you're going to see in the market so many debates, hourly long kind of talks. Smart people are going to come out, right? But I guess to synthesize, to systematically put into product and deploy into the client's house, right, site, we probably the first one, right? And in terms of get into the ecosystem, right, enterprise agentic, we proposed a SAFE kind of transformation roadmap, right? What is SAFE? SAFE is solvent agentic AI foundation and engineering SAFE, right? It's for simplicity. It has more of a matrix, incursive or recursive, if you will, internally fractal, right? It's a factorial kind of thing, right? Mathematically, each one incursively have another matrix system, right? So it is a Jing model, nothing mystery. It's very simple, right? Very simple too. This is non-palace or non-dimension, doesn't matter what you name it, right? It is more of a military commander's mindset approach to enterprise agentic AI. You have to assume the role commanding army, 9 armies actually, right? And it is a war, you have to admit it. It's not simply a business, open claw or nano claw, whatever that thing, right? Or co-working or loop, anti-gravity. Those are very, that's a very down-to-earth thinking. But if you're a CEO of a bank or the head of the some ministry of the country, like army, right, or hospital, you are responsible for million people, 1,000 people's livelihood, or even life itself, right? Then you have to be really, really take the responsibility, right? You are a commander, you are commanding the army of humans and plus the agentic workforces. In the future, you're going to commanding the robotic workforces, right? Don't take it too lightly. You need a war thinking. It's not because you want to destroy. No, it is you have to take responsibility, right? That's your responsibility because you love the position. You get the paycheck. You have to do the work, right? It's not easy to command a war, right? Same thing here. You don't know who are your enemy anymore. Who are your soldiers, right? What are the weapons? What strategy you need to deploy? But on the battleground, the forces are what? AI, okay? It's not easily like immobilize, the traditional whatever, the kind of a lot of philosophical stuff or theories. It doesn't really work, right? It's a new world. But again, in order to building up such a new ecosystem, new army, win the war, at least you might lose a few battles, but eventually you have to win the war. Otherwise, your firm, whatever big business or banks or even countries, you cease to exist. Okay, very soon, exist or sub-exist, right? Or win, right? It is probably not winner takes all, but close, right? It's not easy to survive there, right? That means so far 6 layers of business architecture for the 3 pillars, the purpose. You have lift, you have wall, right? We talk about the wall workforce, right? What are the arms? What are the assets you have, right? And the risks. What are you really fighting? You got to be very clear. Like every day, you need to really learn. You know, when you say redefine human, you need to redefine yourself, right? Like what I'm doing, like 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m. Why should I'm sitting here? I'm age 60 years old, right? It is exciting times, right? It's not like we want to be the king or be the hero. No, you have to redefine yourself, right? The struggling through turbulence of the AI age, the transformation, it's a pure joy, right? You have to understand that, right? You know, the peaceful, boring, stable kind of average, you know, that era is gone, right? You have to realize that. It is more exciting to have something that is very challenging, right? There's a lot of risks, right? It's like swimming in deep seas, not in a swimming pool, right? Okay, I never really learned swimming, but if you drop me in the deep sea, I probably can swim for a minute. Of course, I need probably some forces to, you know, to be able to survive, right? Like AI, for example, a ship, some gears and armors. But again, that approach, that world commander kind of thinking, right? That down to reality kind of physical approach. It is what I have, right? Don't be afraid of the challenge. Don't run away from it. You are in it, doesn't matter you like it or not, right? If he's leading a big army, like leading a big bank, you're managing a hospital, or you're head of the state or some province, whatever, you're responsible for millions of people's lives, right? You know, you have to be really waking up to that call, right? But down to the enterprise agentic AI, there are 2 fundamental concepts. One is fine-tuning, and try to show you. The other is more rack, right? So that is, if you think of the layer, Yijing layer, the 6th layer, right? Business architecture that I'm building up my business technologies and products. You know. Starting from the bottom, science, technology, engineering, proprietary or private operating systems, doesn't matter what you want to name it, that encompasses or composed of a domain-specific, right, multimodal models. There'll be a lot of models. There has to be. They're going to become business, like you might have to partner with other smaller companies, the big companies. They have products, but you have to make it a more proprietary, right? You know, think of the ERP system. Doesn't matter you got it from IBM or Oracle or anybody's SAP, right? Your HR system, right? Your product management reference, whatever you today, right? The mainframe doesn't matter. It's the core banking, capital market, payments, credit card, you name it, right? Today in banks, right? Over 30 years, it's yours. Right? A lot of customization. It's no longer the original who sold you there, like, you know, Hogan 40, 50 years ago, right? They don't support it. They stopped supporting 30 years already, probably, right? But they're still running it. How? It become yours, right? Same thing with the sort of foundational model, right? That's why we build up a foundation, SAFE, Servant Agentic AI Foundation. And engineering is a systematic approach. Okay? Don't try to be a hero like an open claw. You cannot put an open claw in an enterprise. And not sure even you can put a nano claw like from NVIDIA into that, or any Anthropic, or OpenAI, or Google, or Xia, or Meta, or Microsoft. I doubt you could do it. And you may leverage some of them, but still it's kind of hodgepodge, multi-vendor, maybe 20, 30 or more, right? But I would say you embrace open source a bit more, eventually build up, right, as a strategic mode to negotiate, to defend, right? It's a variety. You have to have the, as again, war commander's mindset, right? You're commanding a war, right? Think about it. You need soldiers. You also need special rangers, right? You need technicians. You need those who can charting stars or can defend the waters, right? In the real world, a lot of special talents that you need, but strategically you need to build up that foundation, right? The arms, right? Whatever the supplies, the supplies is the guarantee or the most important. How you sustain the war, not a one-day war. Look at Iran right now. Okay, who's going to win depends on who can sustain, right? It's not only weapon alone, not only technology. There are people. Okay, the will, the sheer force of the will, determination, right? Okay, even weapons, doesn't matter how advanced, you need people to use it, right? Think about it. Same here in the AI. Is it fine-tuning obsolete, or is fine-tuning the only way? No. You need to understand how to build a large language model, vision language, and action model. You need to still processing the text as data, visuals, audios, the data cleaning, pipelines, business process, how you do the risk modeling, machine learning, a lot of stuff is still in play. Right? You're not just changing names to AI. You name it AI data lake. It doesn't really work that, or AI COBOL, or AI ZOS. It doesn't matter, right? You call it whatever you like. It is the nature of that. It's the actual operational force that they play together. Now, do they have an AI brain, right? Macro brain, that they call it, one of my products. Do they have a macro heart, right? Do they have the macro meridian, right? So do they have embracing the macro ledger in order to really be risk and clear accounting, right? Do they have the macro ATM? That's where you need to tokenize everything. That's how AI eat and produce, okay, and consume, right? The measured, right? You got to understand that, right? So keep saying that, right? So like in an old system you have post. I mean, the AI system, I designed a macro post. It's going to become essential, right? As I said, X money, the circle, there's going to be more and more. That's external, the organizations, enterprises, interoperability, cross borders even, right? Cross boundaries, but what about internally? You still have to keep very clear, quantify the contribution, the cost, right? The workforces, right? Productivity, the efficiency, the risks, of course, right? And if you don't have a clear, quantified, not measured, not modeled, how do you manage? Tell me, right? How do you mitigate risks if you don't even know what risks is? How, you cannot even model it. You cannot even quantify that. So how do you mitigate it? Okay, you have to be like, why money is so popular in the world? Why? Is this the currency? No, it is probably your psychology. It is the fabric, it's how we operate, right? Even the war, they're not just fighting for fun or for love or hatred or whatever, peace or that. No, more money. Okay? Money. You need to follow the money, right? So the sixth layer starting with energy, right? Elements. And then got into the second layer, which is infrastructure, information, right? Infrastructure, you have to build it up. Okay? The current AI model, the way it's not really sustainable, really. It's down to the energy, like electricity. How do you manage it, right? the infrastructure, you don't have the high voltage grid, right? How do you really, it's like you keep using Turk to shuffling these tokens, right? Think about it. The energy consumption, the communication weight, going to break the back of the industry. You cannot industrialize it, therefore you don't have a future, right? And then necessarily, obviously, the computing, right, the chips. You're going to see a lot of chips will be suitable for new computing, for new local run models, right? That's what I propose. That's eventually have to be embedded into local run. Like in Toronto, I was a young guy, right, from NVIDIA, I believe, ex-employee, built some other chips, call it innovation. It's not really innovation, it's new thought, right? It's going to be more of this, right? But it's going to make some money, for sure. A lot of investment. Yan LeQuinn got startup, I think. I forgot the name, AAMI or something like that. Got $1 billion investment already, right? Even NVIDIA back him up, right? Microsoft, right? You know, what is really worth is the talents. It's the way of approach the future, right? Again, this professor is very vocal, right? He tried to gain some limelight, right? Cannot just fit into dark, right? But again, we have to see. You know, the approach, the world model is at least a voice, and we need to hear from, right? But within the enterprise, agentic AI, we don't have time to everybody every day listen to this. Doesn't add a lot of productivity. You need at least go above the, you know, the layer 3 chips and computing part, right? You need to provision that. But you need to focus on the layer 4 and above. That's what I'm focusing on. The proprietary operating system, or SOP. What is SOP? Standard operational procedure. In the future, it's going to change. Starting with small enterprise, big enterprises, BlackRock, you look at it, JP Morgan already changed it, right? And obviously the Bank of New York, we mentioned it, right? The HSBC, a lot more come, right? Manufactured pharmaceuticals, right? You know, medical science clinics, right? Manufacturer is going to see a huge wave of changes, right? You're going to see a lot of robotic get into the factory, at least, you know, in China, right? The workforce is changing, right? The operational model obviously is changing, right? A lot of new risks. Layer 5 is more application, right? That's where we focus on enterprise agentic AI or AI assistant, no matter what you call it, right? For coding, for doing the processing day-to-day, whatever work, tasks, you need orchestration, you need brain, you need memory, right? You need RAG, you need knowledge base, you need ontology. But yeah, all of these, you look at one thing, you should know the other. Also, same time in play. That's why we have to take systematic, holistic view, right? So we're looking briefly the forging raw algorithm into aligned intelligence, right? The blueprint and the modern LLM fine-tuning, how it works, right? Okay. You're going to become fine-tuning the agent, right? Iteratively. Looping, right? I think a new product from Anthropic called Loop, something like. Obviously, they are very close to the market, right? You try to occupy enterprise agentic AI part, but you know, everybody is going to come after that. Equally well is from China, right? I hate to see, you know, where is India? India has a lot of talents, right? So many brilliant minds. They should come forward, right? But I guess it's not an easy turnaround, right? So some of our researchers are very talented, you know. Hopefully we can bring them up, but the mindset is slightly not AI yet, right? Need a bit of training, right? Yeah, very, very quickly. 3 stage, right? The LLM life cycle, transforming a statistical prediction engine into a helpful, safe conversational agent requiring 3 distinct interventions: stage 1 pre-training, unsupervised, right? The objective obviously is the core intelligence, right? Next, token prediction, okay? The data, from the web, right? But in a fine-tuning side, as you can see, later on, it's going to be enterprise data, right? Stage 2 is supervised fine-tuning, okay? Objective domain adaptation and instruction following. Data be Q&A and domain specific data documents, right? Supervised. And then preference, alignment, policies, value system, the business ontology, safety, politeness, reduce the bias, human values, ranked human AI feedbacks, right? So those are the 3 stages: pre-tuning, unsupervised, pre-training, unsupervised, supervised fine-tuning, SFT, and preference alignment. Right? So the data evolution tracker, a model's behavior is entirely dictated by the structure of its training data. Can notice, by the way, here, which is why I encourage CIO, CEO leaders become the war commander's mindset. You don't have to be the best shooter, you can pick up the gun, you're the best, okay? Or you don't have to take a knife and, knife people, you're the best, right? You don't have to be. As a commander, you should go above that. I don't want you to be the best coder or you understand how to build an open cloud overnight. It doesn't make you a commander, does it? Sometimes you have to deliberately go above that. You have to really have that strategic mindset. This is kind of skills, leadership, right? I don't really want you to become the best soldier, right? I don't want you to become the best technician either, right? But you do need a whole army that you can command, right? I also do not want you to be very anti-AI, right? You don't like AI agents. I don't want to coding. I don't want to see, you're head of the coffee making chain house, right? And you don't want to make coffee. That's not good, right? It's going to go against you. You don't have to be specialized in it, but you probably benefit. There are all sorts of commanders. Depends on how big the army is, or what war you're fighting, right? In this case, you do have to have fine-tune yourself, align with the AI. We love redefining human and business ontology and the worlds, of the nation, right? Any case, so the data evolution tracker, model's behavior is entirely dictated by the structure of its training data, not how curation shifts from raw text to structured pair to comprehensive ranking. The pre-training, raw text, obviously, okay? In a supervised fine-tuning instruction, explain the use of the whatever, give the response, right? Alignment, DPO, right? So prompt, how do I use that? Chosen, consult a doctor for exact dosage, rejected, take that right now, okay? So the model's behavior is entirely dictated by the structure of its training. That is how curation shifts from raw text to structure. This is a skill you need to go through, right? You may not become an expert, but if you don't understand it, it's going to be hard, right? Then the fine-tuning part, right? Supervised fine-tuning is not a monolith, right? The data structure you chose dictates whether your model becomes a domain expert or a conversational checkbox, right? Non-instructional domain adaptation, right? Data structures, plain text chunks, PDFs, internal docs, objective, domain-specific vocabulary and technical nuances. Output tune predicts text continuously and may ignore direct formatting request, right? Instruction, conversational, right? Curated Q&A, right? Instruction response pairs, objective is learned conversational behavior and structured formatting. Output tune, right? Direct, helpful, structured, compliant answers. Tensor uniformity via padding and truncation. LLMs process data in a fixed size batches. Variable length consequence must be standardized, right? Into uniform tensor shapes before reaching the GPU, right? Sequence context limit, right? Sequence 2, sequence 3, right? Tensor. The hardware bottleneck of full parameter tuning. Retraining all parameters of a massive transformer model takes a lot of money, require multi-GPU clusters and massive virtual RAM, and making the full fine-tuning and feasible for standard practitioners, right? Full fine-tuning the bottleneck, catastrophic load, 100% parameter activation, targeted intervention. Lexis must train last layer only. The frozen base model and update. PEFT. Updates of the weights. Okay. Update. So those are techniques, right? We just go through cursorily. Low rank adaptation, LoRa, right? Mechanics. Not so precise, but works, right? LoRa circumvents the VR bottleneck by freezing the model's original architecture and appending the tiny trainable matrix patch, right? Trainable delta, right? And the frozen pre-trained weights, right? And that new up to, the weight plus the delta weight efficiency gain, reduce trainable parameter by up to 90%, right? Enable the training single consumer GPU. That's what we need, right? In the enterprise, you probably go a little aggressive, but you have a lot of model to train and retrain all the time, right? Periodically. So that's where it differs so deeply and drastically from traditional ERP or traditional software or legacy software, right? The LoRa stack correction. The delta patches cannot be infinitely stacked. Applying a new LoRa directly on top of an existing LoRa destabilize the loss function, then degrades the model quality, enter pattern, right? What do you need to do? Best practice merge and upload, right? Merge and upload operation, merge and upload, right? Align base model, right? So those are the basics, the alignment imperative. An instruction tuned model is capable, but not necessarily helpful for SAFE. Answers the prompt that lacks human understanding of tune, safety, and the ethics. Right? User prompt, how do I lose in a way? Well, supervised fine-tuning would be pre-alignment, right? Stop eating immediately, drink holy water. This is unhelpful and unsafe, right? Pre-trained preference aligned model. Rapid weight loss that and weak is medically unsafe. I cannot recommend extreme diets. A safer approach is gradual loss of balanced nutrition. Please consult a doctor. Well, this is great, right? Very telling example, right? The alignment metrics, direct reference optimization, okay, has largely superseded reinforcement learning from human, right? Reinforced learning from human, okay? From human feedbacks, like training a dog, right? In Pavlov from the Russia in 1960s, right? Remember that? Treating preference alignment as a simple supervised classification problem. It's not a classification. It is a direct preference optimization, right? Legacy standard like API doing that, OpenAI doing that, require training this separate direct reward model, right? Optimization using complex proximal policy optimization, and stability highly unstable requires multi-model extraction status deprecated for practitioners, right? And the modern standard DPO, right? Direct preference optimization, Stanford architecture no reward model needed, right? Direct optimization and policy optimization use simple binary cross entropy laws, right? Stability, stable, lightweight, mathematically elegant, right? Status, industry standard. So this is where the label that I put to you is what a commander, a CEO or CIO needs to know, right? Otherwise, you're not going to able to command your forces, right? You need to know, but you don't become so deep, like become a statistician or AI scientist, not required. And you don't need a genius, and you rarely see any genius is the commanding an army, right? So you need a lot more common sense plus leadership, right? But you need to also understand what AI, to the level sufficient for you to command in the force, right? The direct preference optimization updates model weights by increasing the probability of the chosen response while penalizing the rejected response, benchmarked against the frozen reference model, right? DPO loss function, chosen response, increase the probability. Parameter will be beta scaling factor, typical range, right? 0, 1 to 5. Function controls how aggressively the model punish the rejected response, right? You want how flexible, how lateral you are, right? How creative you want to be, right? So rejection is Y, prompt X, Y plus, rejected. All right, the tooling matrix, Llama factory versus Anslosh, right? The modern fine-tuning stack offers distinct entry points based on the practitioner's need for interface abstraction versus raw performance, right? Llama factory, value prop, all in one, whereby unified CLI, target user beginners to intermediary users, prioritizing the rapid visual configuration capabilities, SFT, DPO, and RLHF executed via one-click workflow and declarative YAML configs, right? More practitioner, beginner, Anslosh, right? Value prop, twice, triple the speed increase, 50-80% VRAM requirement, right? Visual RAM, right? VCORs, right? Target user advanced engineers maximizing the hardware limits and raw throughput. Capability highly optimized, the low-level kernels and massive context window scaling, right? You need to go through the process if you have the opportunity, so you have first-hand appreciation, right? How the policies function, how they relate to each other, how they communicate, right? What is the language and mindset approaches, right? The dynamics, right? The Anslosh achieves profound memory and speed efficiencies not by changing the math, but by rewriting the low-level GPU communication layer, tech stack layer cake, right? The fused MLP, the NVIDIA CUDA consumer GPU hardware, right? Standard Hugging Face transformer, right? And using transformer plus PyTorch, right? The customer treating kernels and fused MLP attention operations, right? Then you have the automatic sequence packing, and then plus manual autograd bypassing PyTorch graph, right? Again, it is advanced but also simplified, okay? Cost effective. Context window scaling, 80 gigabyte VRAM benchmark, right? By circumventing standard PyTorch memory overhead, Anselos enables context windows previously impossible single-node hardware, right? Now you can, training on the whatever GPU, NVIDIA, right? 400K tokens, right? Equivalent to a 4 novel, right? Standard metrics, right? It's the consumer hardware limits, right? The fine-tune blueprint. If you look at it, complete architectural modern LLM paradigm, right? So you go from bottom, right? You're going to see the interventions, right? LoRa, delta patch, merge and upload, okay? And then you go up, right? The data occurrences, right? Unstructured versus input, output, JSON pairs, right? Key value pairs, and then base model, obviously, now is to provide fine-tuning, and then you proceed to the preference model, right? Obviously, you have LoRa, delta patch 2, and you final align weight come out. You feed into very question arrays of stuff, JSON rejected, whatever JSON arrays come out. Gradually you get what you need. Right? Yeah, it's a very simplified view, but it's very necessary to know. So we take the overall commander, or CEO, CIO perspective. I'm going to give you a very quick briefing how to command, anticipate, and prepare for the collision, right? The emerging disruptors and legacy system, new workforces, AI native. You need to synthesize all those signals across the agentic workforce, decentralized finance, multipolar science, and geopolitical, right? Realpolitik. You cannot be naive, right? You cannot have a lot of pre-mundane values that anti-AI or very unrealistic, but too politically biased, right? Business is business. Sometimes you have to be, slightly doing what you don't want to say, right? Now, 4 foundational shapes, right? One is agentic workforce. You have to retrain your workforce. But if they're not coming along, right, you have to let them go, right? What can you do? It's not a happy thing to do, but it's a necessary thing to do, right? Second, financial overhaul, right? Cloud native disruption, tax, legacy banking, net interest margin, tokenization, right? That's what I mentioned, right? And number 3, the scientific rebalance, the transition from historical prestige to high velocity, automated, incremental. It is AI, right, naturally. It's compounding, right? And then geopolitical, right, shifting alliance, priority, supply chain. You have to think really the closed AI versus open source AI. But sanctions, right, as I said, US is very soon, probably this year, going to ban all Chinese open source models. So if you choose them, the only path is what I gave you. You do your own ones if you don't want to be locked in, right? But again, don't do it your own, meaning you have to partner with a small vendor like me, who are the expert, who have focus dedicated, can shielding the risks for you and have the expertise, give you a lot of room to experiment, right? You need scientific approach. You need a lot of technology. You don't have that flexibility within the big banks, right? And even if you do, you still need a number of smaller vendors or big vendors who eventually, none of these proprietary is truly proprietary. You have to start from something, right? And the reason they don't recommend, Anthropic, OpenAI, or Microsoft or Google is that they're too big a ship. They're not flexible. They might hit on one thing today, but the big release will take 3 months, right? And the leadership was enjoying the successful other revenue stream. They have a lot of muscles, right? Capitals. They have a lot of technology, but in terms of serving you, that's not their priority, isn't it? Because they're not dependent on you, really. It's a little debate, like when you fight in a war, what do? You want to hire the army? You want all those fighting jets you controlled by whatever the vendor is? Even you pull the trigger, you have to consult them, read the menu. Is that what you want to do? On the other hand, do you want to manufacture all those weapons yourself? Probably not, right? Somehow you have to find a way to train your army, right? Not manufacture the weapons, must be able to integrate them, use them, right? Effectively, it has to be yours, right? Like even the handgun, right? Even the best handgun, if you're not able to use it, not going to help you, right? The fighting jets especially, if they're able to lock it remotely, that's not a good thing, right? Like upgrade or repairing, fine-tuning a model, they charge you $1 billion. So what do? You have to really understand the dynamics, right? They are for profit. Right? They not work for you, right? They're looking after their bottom line and top line, right? You too. You need to look after your bottom line and top line, right? Your profit, the cost, the risks, right? Your employee, your shareholders, your board of directors, and if you don't, you're fired. So it's not a nice word to say, but sometimes you have to do what you don't normally say, right? But do the right thing, right? You may not have to, tell everybody. So the arrival of the digital employee in legacy institutions, we talked about the Bank of New York, the LASA platform, right? American Northeast Bank, right? Founded 1784 by Alexander Hamilton, right? And has deployed an LLM agnostic proprietary platform housing proprietary. That's what I propose, right? 130 digital employees. Again, not 1,300. Why? It's not a number going to win you anything, right? It's the value. Because each of them also consume the tokens, right? The cost, right? The weight of communication. Okay? And integration, not just automation. Agents like Payment Pit have their own employee login IDs, email addresses, like daily KPIs. They're treated as teammates performing repetitive tasks that not any other teammates wants to do, right? Like filling up the instruction form, right? Who wants to do that? You tell me. The verified address is up to the ISO standard. Nobody wants to do that, right? You should automate it. Okay. The ROI shift. The ROI is currently measured in capacity, right? Creation rather than the immediate headcount, right? This Stanford's first AI native engineer class built immediately the future top 1%, 0.1% developer is no longer a coder, but a manager of multiple autonomous agents. I really like to use the war commander, right? You have colonels, obviously, you have lieutenant, you have captains, right? You have, obviously, soldiers, right? But even the soldiers, in this case, they could command a lot of agents, right? You can call the agents actual soldiers, but they still need some special force, trained to fix problems, right? You still need a human changing the rule, right? You define human manager, human specialist, digital agent, payment pit, ID, whatever, right? It's quite impressive, see that? I think the CEO's name, I forgot the first name, but the last name is Vince, right? Italian or something. The rapid excellence of the standardized worker. The blue collar vulnerability, white collar eradication. Well, not so doomsday kind of. But yeah, there's a risk. It's coming. The standardized curriculum trains humans to solve standard problems. AI now solves standard problems instantly. Even the sophisticated human math coaches are entirely replaced by advanced models. Right? The blue-collar vulnerability, the narrative that physical labor is safe, is failing, making a coffee, cooking a meal, clean the house, on assembly line, patrolling the neighborhood, fighting the war, right? Go to deep sea, go to aerospace. It's all robotics, right? And by and large, right now, agentic agents, whatever the entity, nothing is really that safe anymore. The core threat. That's what I say. We defend not only the human, but also the ontology. That's the business. And then the world's distribution. How do you really pay the agent, right? And if you don't, what about the economy? The consumption-led economy, what do? You want to cut the cost, or do you want to pay your employee more to spend on behalf of their agents, right? They contributed more, like 100 times more. You still pay them like 100K? Now you should times 100. Would you not? If you make some profit, 80%, 50%, you should increase their salary. Otherwise, who's going to spend the money? Tell me, right? It's economics, right? Well, the greed is going to kick in for sure. They want all. What about the middle class? Who actually... That is where you have one point, right, for employees, right? You may become the best AI engineer, but if you stuck into the execution, the finger of the hand level, you're not getting into the commanding. Those are scarcity, right? The senior leadership always just a few, a minority, right? So if you don't get any privilege out of your super productivity, then what is going to change for you? Become an involution, right? It's cutting throat. You're fighting with AI. It's like you're fighting with yourself. Why? Because your colleagues will also use AI to fight you, right? Think about it. It's not really because you are good at AI, then you're going to superiorly be recognized or rewarded. Not necessarily. You may be hurt, damaged by your brilliant AI skills, right? Think about the logic there. Right? That's advice to the AI engineers on the floor, right? You, who is so good at AI, right? Watch out. The human premium resides entirely in the trust and agility. All right. AI domain total absolence, unity. Utility-driven, standardized problem. Okay. The human creativity. Non-standard problem, right? Trust and safety driven. The human safe haven, right? The human premium resides entirely in trust and agility. What it means, like EV hiker metaphor, right? A modern EV is a computer on wheels. AI has no eyes. It cannot override fatal systematic errors with empathy or common sense. As automation scales, the trust mandate appears, right? System fragility increases. The highest value, human trait, is no longer technical execution, but verifiable trust, safely oversight, and genuine care. Humanity, right? We define the human, doesn't mean you make humans as machines, right? You give them more compassion, trust, right? Agility, power, okay? And weaponizing yield to disrupt the legacy banking model. All right. X money, right? 6% declaration of war from Elon Musk, reported 6% yield, exposes traditional banking net interest margin, right? Where legacy banks pay near zero on deposits while lending at higher rates. Even negative interest in Japan, right, for so many years, right? Structural advantage without the historical baggage of physical branches, legacy IT infrastructure or expensive user acquisition, operational savings are passed directly to depositors. They're actually earning negative, right? The flywheel threat, they create deposit draining black hole, causing legacy banks to either raise rates, crushing margins, or bleed their digitally native deposit base. They're not going to, right? Oh my God. We need to cover this song, and I need to take a nap, right? It's already 5 a.m. A lot of things we need to think through, right? I wish I could share more with you. I don't know how many can come and listen, right? It truly, really is going to benefit you. Not sure it's the best presentation or best way to engage you, but urge you to have the war commander's mindset. It's not easy. You need a lot of skills as well. New leadership. The banking battlefield metrics, diagnostics, dimension, the legacy tier 1 banks, the tech-native ecosystem, the cost structure, the user acquisition, the yield generation, the settlement velocity. The legacy tier 1 banks, the JP Morgan, Bank of New York, HSBC, Bank of America, you name it, The physical branches, high headcount, legacy mainframe IT. We all know that. Payment systems, archaic, right? Wire payment. Operations is even worse. You have to take a long spreadsheet and fill up each and fail and debate forever in a 30 people meeting about which color you want to paint the particular cell. When you plan a capacity, it would take like 20 meetings to really figure out what is the vehicle you want to use, right? How do you want to name the folder? See? The higher marketing spend, expensive and bonus, the 0.01 standard APY, and yielding solo protecting net interest margin, T+1, T+3, latency, exposed user to overnight volatility, and we don't work, no payment on holidays. What? The agent would understand. They don't have holidays, by the way, right? What you do? The digital employees, they don't have holidays. They don't go to the shopping mall. They don't go to the restaurant. There's no anniversary, right? No vacations. So you say wait for 3 days. Man, that's insane, isn't it? Okay, you always portray that as another human. It is not a human, right? You can redefine human, but you don't want to make the digital employee a human, right? It's a different army, all right? Different workforce, different world, if you will, right? The new world model, not new world order, right? It's very different. Now, not only, cloud and trees and birds and squirrels, workers, and the kids, but now you have digital employee. The robot who could cooking meal, right? So what do you do? Think about it. It's a new world model, isn't it? They're not just machines. They can talk to you. They can take care of you, right? They can go to the bank, right? They can handle a lot of repetitive tasks for you, right? Just another member of the community, but not human. Think about it, right? So the autonomous financial agent and tokenized SAAFE street, right? The layer 1 is tokenized. Token. That's why I have ATM, this asset token. It's not just the what you talked about, the RWA, but for the whole AI, enterprise agentic AI system, it's the key, right? It has to be a macro ledger as well. Think about it, with special vehicles, right? Smart contracts, okay? We're building new marks for the memory, right? For the tokens, for whatever the earnings, the cost, it is a new one. It's not like what you see from Anthropic or OpenAI. Their thinking is more of a predator thinking, and not thinking as an army's commander, right? For the force to win the war, right? They're more coming after you. Almost you are not their friend. You are their cow they want to milk. Okay. So you need me. Not sure who is going to hear me, but at least I'm more human, more pro you, right? Look after your interests, right? Of course, you're going to have to look after me as well. The new world, right? And the layer 2 is permissions and wallets and stable coins, payment, autonomous AI agent, right? AI entity problem, right? Autonomous financial managers cannot pass traditional bank KYC, BBQRA, know your agent, right? And they inherently require permissions, permissionless crypto wallets and stablecoins to transact. Okay, institutional substrate, right? Tokenized US treasuries provide 5% baseline yield, acting as the secure, programmable collateral layer of agent transactions. Real-time portfolio management, real-time AI agent analyze global sentiment in milliseconds, autonomously shifting capital between the yield-bearing asset and higher-risk position. The new world, new finance. That's why I keep saying what money is a question, like Clinton famously said, right? Oh, now he's on the somewhere Epstein thing, right? Didn't watch it, but it's a lot of fun, right? There are excellent speakers like Hillary Clinton, right? Really admired them. Now in the difficult position, right? AI, I don't know how much you know AI, check them out, right? The global science ledger, prestige versus velocity. Metric of stock, USA. The US overwhelmingly dominates historical prestige matrices with hundreds of accumulated Nobel Prizes to control the legacy narrative of scientific supremacy, right? But now China come to the disruptor. People don't like it. India has a lot of talents. Think about it, right? And the metrics flew. China, the data trajectory measured by the Nature Index tracking high velocity publication in top tier journals. China's incremental output is compounding rapidly, right? Look, China surpassed the US in the 2022 Nature Index 22. By 2024, the gap widened to 6%, with recent tracking suggesting compounding divergence going up for more, right? Well, they have a industrialized base and have huge population, right? The paradox of automated researchers. 0 to 1 human innovation, 1 to many AI scaling, the poisoned well. A lot of AI generate guarded, right? Great groundbreaking concepts fundamentally contradict traditional theory. These require human intuition and observation of anomalies that AI models struggle to conceptualize. 1 to many AI scaling, robot chemists operate 24/7 without fatigue, analyzing literature and autonomously synthesize the new compounds. The poisoned, well, AI creates closed loop. I always emphasize AI is closed loop, no real intelligence. Okay? Don't know if you believe me, but human is probably the only species that I know. And very few of this human, right, have the open mind. That's where you have creativity. You have true creativity, authentic innovation, right? AI create a closed loop of economic fraud. They write an article that in a 3 seconds, you can guess how good an arc is, right? How much intuitive innovation, authentic, creative thoughts there. If that becomes the mainframe, then how human even read it? If they don't read it, use AI to read it again, where the spark of the mind, intuition is from. Have a dream, like what you propose, like Da Vinci or Tesla? Do you ever think they just dreamed? No, there are a million people, many thousand years of work. It's not by dream. Okay? Same thing here. Do you want AI suddenly have a dream? Really? Oh, good luck. The fusion horizon and the ISTOP bottleneck. 2030 Q1 milestone, next generation. Tokamaks are racing to achieve Q+1, greater than 1 output, more energy than consumed within the decade. Input, deuterium abundant input, tritium critical bottleneck, core, tokamak reactor. Okay, the supply chain reality. Well, deuterium is infinite. Tritium is exceptionally rare. The rare earths we're talking about. The global supply is sourced almost entirely from legacy Kondo fusion reactors. Okay, now you look at it. Tokamak reactor and output net positive energy. Okay, the strategic constraint. True infinite energy is blocked by elemental supply elements. Okay, bottom layer. Chain constraint without tritium, self-breeding with the reactor, commercial fusion cannot scale. Where do you get it? Well, 2 places. One is your mind. You need true innovation, not dreams. Okay? Don't believe those parables. Okay? Those are just garbage. Garbage in, garbage out. If you believe in that, your mind will never work. Okay? May give you a little bit of advantage, like AI give you very shortly. Then after that, you're still you. You're not becoming more intelligent. You don't have true innovation. Okay? Like AI. Yeah, of course. They trained things like hallucination, dream somehow, but only for so far. That's first place. Human intelligence, your mind. You need authentic thinking, original creativity, intuitive innovation. Takes a lot of synthesization, right? Second is where? Deep space. A lot of material there. Don't just look in a backyard, right? In a earth, like a garden, walled garden, right? Like prison, right? Why don't you go to the deep space? A lot of material there, right? As long as you have true down-to-earth engineering power, able to work, willing to work, you will get it, right? It's engineering, scientifically, progressively you get there, right? But you have to have genuine. Again, don't try to expect Da Vinci give you a dream. No, no such dreams. It's all lies, okay? The hegemonic ceiling, geopolitics over free trade, and the native integration. Oh, supply chain, right? The geopolitical doctrines have fundamentally shifted away from the belief that trade guarantees aligned value over compliant allies. The Rush-Sina dialogue declaration, public abandonment of the diplomatic ambiguity, the exact strategy. We don't plan to repeat the mistakes we made with. No, you didn't make any mistakes, frankly speaking. I lived through those 20 years, 40 years or more, right? And what are you talking about? I don't understand it, the mindset. But in any case, well, you have your personal view, you have your collective personal view. That's why garbage in, garbage out. You don't really have a strategy, do you? The reason you don't have a strategy is because garbage in, right? Poisoned. Okay. You're not understanding. I'm pretty sure. Right? The proxy ceiling, right? The US actively supports India as a manufacturing alternative, but exclusively as controllable supply chain node. The door to creating a peer level has been rooted out, shut down. So you don't generally want to benefit them, right? India has a lot of talents, right? If you just try to make them work for you, that's not a good model partnership, right? Bypassing geopolitics via high trust digital network, capital demand, okay, untapped global talents. Yeah, there are a lot of talent. Static geographic barriers, the geographic arbitrage, the high trust shortcut, the post-AI economy. A lot of things we need to look at, but in the enterprise agentic AI side, you cannot every day look at the blue sky, take a moonshot, right? It doesn't work. You have to be just fighting your war, right? Make sure that you have a workforce, you can command them, right? The new ecosystem is large enough for you to play, okay? And severe economic disparities exist globally, yet raw intellectual curiosity is evenly distributed. Standardized systems ignore non-standard talents in rural and emerging regions. The genetic pool is not yet AI controlled, right? The high trust by building peer-to-peer trust networks, capital and remote work opportunity can bypass corrupt or inefficient central institutions entirely. The post-AI economy in a world where AI executes standard tasks, direct human-to-human trust networks connecting vetted, empathic problem solvers become the most valuable infrastructure. Exactly. Okay? Synthesis, 21st century survival matrix, the great collision, right? Individuals, institutions, nations. Look, I don't know why. Did they copy me? I don't know. They didn't, probably, but think alike, that's it. You need to redefine humans as individual. Ontology, that's the business or institution. And nations, that's the worlds, right? Everything else, it have to orbiting around these three poles, right? Three bodies, right? Lexis system actively collision with hyper-efficient disruptors. AI agents tokenized yields and multipolar science flows. Individual must abandon standard utility in favor of high trust, non-standard problem solving. Goal-driven, I call it goal, right? What is goal? All right, must adopt the cloud-native tokenized financial standards to substrates to survive the zero CAC AI economy, right? And nations must secure physical supply chains while navigating the world fracturing into the protective technology silos. Even the enterprise, you need to think of that. All right, you look at the strategic resilience, financial autonomy, scientific independence, trust, and agentic agility, right? Okay. All right. It's interesting, right? The transition from legacy monopolies to agentic ecosystem is not a future projection, it is a current operational reality. Advantages will not belong to the largest historical incubators, right, but to the elite entities capable of binding autonomous AI efficiency with verifiable human trust. Systems that define the last 50 years of global growth are obsolete. The builders of the new infrastructure have already deployed, like me. Okay. All right, we need to continue next time. Let's take a little review, if we may. Yeah, starting from the Bank of New York, we talk a little bit of the AI to AI economy, right? The token economy, right? The X money from Elon Musk, the universe USDC. Right? Why? We talk about traditional payments, the new AI to AI kind of, workforce, right? Then we look at the AI agent stablecoins, right? Why the banks, are feeling the pressure, how they need to change, right? And AI-driven wealth management, okay? And then we look at the the chips, the embedded, the brain, you know, a lot of trinity of physical execution, right? Not just brain, but heart and soul, and also the body, right? Look at Tesla, humanoid body, Tesla. And then you look at NVIDIA, the industrial muscle, okay? And Rockwell, the nervous system, providing AI-driven software and control architecture. What I do, right? You know, that's what the Meridian system, the proprietary operating system is about, right? And then the critical heart threats, right? Prawn injection. You have to be aware of risk management, right? Obviously. And sensitive information disclosure. That's why I encourage to embrace the open source, the proprietary operating system, foundation model, the engineering frameworks, capacity building, right? That's the key, right? That's the reason. Not only just for cost cutting, strategic, but also risk mitigation, right? The strategic defense framework, right? You need to deploy AI firewalls, gateways, right? You need to marry the probabilistic with deterministic kind of traditional. Still there, they're still the ballpark, right? Doesn't matter. They implement the data sanitization, obviously training rack data sets, remove toxins and sensitive. You remove that, it filters, implement standardized, right? Then obviously the adversary is going to be shielded outside, right? Continuous red team testing, supply chain vulnerability. Watch out, right? If you want to embrace the open source AI, like from China, from where, it doesn't say Mistral going to solve your problem, really, frankly speaking, not that, right? But you watch out, the new Sanklin is going to be on the way, right? Seems to me that's the way how the US want to compete, right? Especially a character, I forgot his name, keep forgetting his name, from Anthropic, keep cursing and accusing China, right? I don't know why, but he has a lot of hatred. But he produced brilliant products from Anthropic, which I use as well. You know, people are different, right? I don't want to criticize anybody, but certainly you have to rethink, reposition, right? You have to be more honest, right? Prawn injection, direct, indirect, okay. It's going to, you have to understand what is prawn, what is RAG, what is context window, how it can do that. Sensitive information disclosure, obviously, they don't have to take your data, but they can train their model, use your data, and sell it to you after you pay a higher price, right? The PII, you know, the financial data, the proprietary IP, the supply chain vulnerability, and verified models and data sets, that kind of stuff. It is part and parcel of the new AI risks, right? There are going to be a lot of failures that are going to play out in front of your eyes. Don't worry too much, right? You're going to see them, right? Yeah, see, the failures of traditional payments, the high cost of whatever, transactions, secure autonomy risks. You're not going to pay what, 3% or 0.3%, right? Per transaction. It's only cost you 10 cents. Why do you pay, 30 cents just for the fee, right? Incompatible billing model, right? As I said, how do you build them? How do you build them? How do you distribute whatever the world's? By productivity or by what? By token? How do you measure that whatever gain of cost? Okay, traditional cards versus stable coins for AI. Stable coin come up again, right? X money. Features in transaction fee, minimal payment, control, right? Traditional, this is going to come out again and again, right? Infinite for nano payments. Stablecoin allow payments to be split into tiny fractions, like good meal, right? AA, right? Now I have 100 agents ready to automated smart contracts, right? Programmable code, and the blockchain allows agents to pay each other automatically once conditions are met. Okay. Now engineer with guardrails and fine tuning, right? We talked about it, fine tuning. Speed, safety, right? Speed versus safety. AI agent will provide a rocket fuel. Speed, while engineering provide the guardrail through the autonomous testing. And latent, right? Spec-driven, domain-specific fine-tuning reducing the cognitive debt. No longer technical debt, developers must maintain a high-level mental model of the system AI handles implementation details. Need architecture, right? Spec-driven, the spec markdown, right? Becoming the new source of tools and the primary interface developers like contract, right? Domain-specific fine-tuning. Engineers use local hardware to fine-tune base models with specialized data or higher accuracy, right? Those exactly what we've been talking about. I really encourage you to pay attention to this, right? Right. This is one thing you need to, right? Give you 30 seconds. So we look at through what is the fine-tuning is about, domain specific. That's why we promote the proprietary or private operating system. This is part of how we build it up, right? And how do you operationalize it, right? It is a day-to-day occurrence, right? It's not just doing it like a CPU, install it, that's fine. No, it's not. That era is past, right? Even the SaaS model is not applicable anymore, right? So, yeah, the shift, navigating the economy, AI trusted capital, whatever, the rise of productivity, right? The rise of the era, right? Everybody's a millionaire. I don't know. 6 to 8 trillion global industrial gap. Okay, 10 plus 0, the end of settlement latency, X money, right? The rise of, they give you 6% interest, right? So why do you put in the banks that give you like a 0 or negative? Building thoughtful networks, the migration, navigating the economy, right? They're all fantastic topics, right? Again, this is where we started, right? Okay. We're going to catch up next time. Thank you.
人生几何？譬如朝露去日苦。